All right, let's talk about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Of course, this is a program that a lot of people are trying to focus on for this upcoming season. Can they take another big leap? Can Matt Rule's strategy, that long-term team building approach, actually work out for Nebraska? But we've got some interesting data we found in terms of the Cornhuskers' future, which I think is a lot brighter than a lot of people think. We'll get into that in just one second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, when it comes to team building, when it comes to, reloading, revamping a former dynasty like Nebraska is, the important thing is, of course, patience, right? These things take a lot of time. You have to work through all the bad negativity, all the recruiting issues, transfer issues, organizational issues of failed past administrations, set a new culture, bring in new coaching staff, and then most importantly of all, start bringing in good quality players. And it takes a process. You don't go in day one and just bring in the top flight program kind of guys and immediately become an elite program, right? It just doesn't happen, right? Nick Saban did that at Alabama, and he's the greatest of all time, and that was Alabama, right? So it's a different kind of environment, incredible amount of money. The issues at Tuscaloosa at the time were not nearly as severe as they've been for Nebraska prior to bringing in Matt Rule in 2023. But when you look at the numbers and look at the data of what Rule is doing in terms of recruiting, bringing in talent, he is slowly and incrementally accumulating a lot of great players and setting this program up for a lot of success in the future. We got a bunch of great charts to kind of highlight this. Let's throw up our first one here. This is looking at Nebraska's recruiting classes going back to 2022, the year before Matt Rule showed up, and then the 3 years that have followed since then, 2023, 2024, and 2025. And this is the average score of each recruit in that class, right? And you can see in 2022, it was around 86, 87. 2023, first year, they're about the same, not a lot of change. But 2024, 2025, we see a clear ramp up in the quality of recruit. And that 90 threshold, right around 90, that is really, really important. If you can start accumulating a bunch of classes right around that 90 number, that's where the Ohio States are. That's where the Oregons are. And any program that goes to a long-term rebuild, what they're able to do is consistently hammer out recruits right around that 90 number and do that for 1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. And then you build a deep, talented team, right? Because it's important to understand if you have one good recruiting class, let's look at 2025, for example, they're not all going to play this season, right? They're not all going to play by 2026. We won't really see them all in action until 2027 and 2028. So it takes 2, 3, 4 years for everything to work out. So you need basically a number, at least 3 really good recruiting classes in a row for you to build that team that's capable of winning a national title. And there's actually recent precedent for this. Let's pull up the Michigan numbers. They won the national title, of course, a number of years ago. And you can see what their recruiting classes were doing the 3 years prior to winning that national title, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Again, right around that 90 number all 3 of those years. Building that deep, talented roster, building a depth base that was really good. They had a lot of stars, but a lot of core pieces as well across the board, both sides of the football, so that even when the recruiting talent actually dipped at 2023, they had 3 really good classes, again, right around that magical 90 number, and they were set to explode. They dominated, of course, went undefeated, won the national title, upset Alabama, went on to beat Washington, right? It was before Harbaugh went off to the National Football League. A great year for the Michigan Wolverines program. And you can see it was all based on those 3 really good recruiting years right around that 90 number. It built the core of the team that Michigan used to win that national title. And you can see Nebraska is starting to get to that level. Let's go into our final chart here. This is the most important point. So this is comparing those seasons, right? Obviously, it didn't chronologically line up. So we just did year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And you can see that delta right at the very beginning, year 1, the last year before Matt Rule showed up and the first year Matt Rule showed up. There's a big gap in talent between what Michigan was building in terms of a national championship team those first 2 years. But watch what happens as Matt Rule gets more time in the 2024 and 2025 classes. He gets closer, and then in 2025, he actually gets up to about the same level Michigan was, exceeded their last year, not too far behind the 3 prior years. So Matt Rule has hit a key threshold for Nebraska. He's finally got the talent base up to win a national title, right? It takes a long time to get there, but he's done it for 1 season. Now comes the hard part. Can they continue that success for 2026. Continue that for 2027. And if they can do that, I have no reason to think Matt Rule can't, because he's not relying on any gimmicks. He's not relying on some crazy NIL strategy or some weird social media thing or anything like that. Really good recruiting. We've seen some reports already looking out to the 2027 class with some kids where things are looking good there. And it's early, but it's looking good. If that trend can continue where Nebraska can hold right around that magical 90 number, get 1, 2, 3 seasons at that level, then this Nebraska program will have the talent base they finally need to compete and potentially win a national title. All right, Mize, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. I know I threw a bunch of charts at you. Hey, listen, we're a big Microsoft Excel channel. What can I say? But before I get your thoughts, first, Nebraska fans in the comment section below. Obviously, now that you've seen the data in terms of the recruiting strategy and just the trajectory of this program, what's one thing you think Matt Rule needs to change, however, to get this program in a better spot? Is it maybe getting a different coach in terms of assistant in some areas? Is it changing an offensive defensive strategy, or maybe play a certain player a little bit more? What's one thing in your mind Matt Rule needs to change that would make this program a lot better? Let us know in the comment section below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on Nebraska now that you've seen this data?
Yeah, Nick, I think the data is really important because it kind of just shows Nebraska what has been going on, how they've been churning along as far as recruiting and getting closer and closer, like you said, to that magic number, getting your talent level up to a point to where if you can repeat that, which Matt Rule has shown he is incrementally going up every single year. I don't think he'll repeat it next year. I think he'll be a little bit better, and I think he'll be a little bit better than that the following year as well. So I think this shows what Nebraska is looking for, and we talk about this a few times over the last couple of a week or so, 2 weeks. Some videos we did is just this is the definition of an overnight success. This is going to be a Nebraska team that they're doing good, they're doing fine, whatever. No one really gives them attention. Then one year they pop and really start to make a lot of noise. But wow, this Nebraska team really turned around overnight. Nobody saw this coming. Well, if you look at the data, you look at the numbers, you can see it coming. You can see the incremental building of what these recruiting classes have done. And I think it's more than just a recruiting classes, because if you take their overall rank, which is a combination of their transfer portal ranking and their composite ranking, and like you said, go back all the way to 2022. 2022, they're 32nd overall. 2023, 31st overall. 2024, 23rd overall. Now 2025, 20th. They're making that top 20 now. Is it just a team that overall has done really good stuff in both categories, slowly building their way to being that championship caliber team? They just hit the threshold, like you allude to. It's not something that's going to happen the next year. It's not going to happen the next 2 years. But when we're talking about 2027, 2028, those are the years we look at this Nebraska team, and it could be primed to pop. That's the years where I think you'll have enough great recruiting base underneath you, like this chart showed, kind of complementing what Michigan was able to do. That's the key here. Build the program up, hit your thresholds, start to make some noise, compile that for the next 2-3 years. Then you'll have a good enough recruiting and transfer portal base to have this team pop. I think Nebraska, they're almost there. They just hit the start of it. I think it's time to start getting a little bit excited, but it's going to take a little bit of time still. It took time to get where they are, but it's also going to take time to complete it as well. This is Matt Rule. He has a bunch of phases, a bunch of plans, a long-term strategy for this program, but we're starting to see results. We're starting to see the recruitment get there, and now they finally hit the threshold they've been looking to hit.
Yeah, because it's one thing if you can just try and use NIL and the transfer portal that force and just ram through a magical season. And you can do it and you can get lucky and then win 10, 11 games and then fall apart and, win 4 games the following season. We see that happen all the time in college football. A team gets it right in the transfer portal one year. They have a good injury luck. Their conference gets a little weak and they go on a magical run. They get waxed in the postseason. I look at Indiana as a great example of that, right? I know they're a feel-good story. Everyone wants to feel great about Indiana. They were an overrated team. They won a lot of games they shouldn't have won. They're not that good of a team. We're not seeing any spike in recruiting. We're not seeing any spike in talent wanting to go play for Indiana. That was clearly sort of an aberrational year. Good for them. Great story for them. Good job by their program, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is that's not setting themselves up for long-term success. That's what they failed to do. Under Matt Rule, Nebraska, again, is slowly but surely getting better and better players and they hit that magical number, right? That 90-ish number. There's something about that number, right? It's kind of round and it's kind of nice. It looks good on the chart, but there is something to that. If you're not right around 90 in terms of your baseline around talent, you won't win a national title, right? Even if you have a year where you have a 93 and you're a top 5 recruiting class, if you don't have a roster of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors that are averaging around 90, it ain't going to matter, right? You need a deep class, all positions, all ages, all classes, right around that 90 number, right? Nick Saban crushed in that regard. Kirby Smart crushed in that regard. We brought up the numbers, of course, looking at Harbaugh in Michigan. He did a great job in that regard. And Matt Rule has reached that number. Consistency really matters. But like we said, there's a good chance that happening. We saw it already. Trey Taylor, the quarterback commit for the 2027 class and the recruiting he's actually doing for Nebraska, it's very clear that Nebraska isn't going to significantly dip. You brought up the fact they could get even better. I think there's a strong argument to be made there, but they don't even have to get a lot better. If they can just hold the line where they are now and build multiple classes at this level, they will have the base roster needed to make a deep postseason run. And I know everyone falls in love with the 5-star recruits and the one big guy, and that can be and is incredibly important. Dylan Raiola bagging him was a big win for Nebraska. But the reality is you win national titles, you win conference titles, heck, you win games, just regular football games, by having a deep, talented roster across the board. And Nebraska has gotten that problem solved for 2025. It took a long time. Now it's about building off of that success, taking advantage of those opportunities, capitalize on any good seasons they have. I think they'll be better this year than they were last season, and just build that roster, build that depth, do a great job in recruiting. Don't get too aggressive in the transfer portal. Use it selectively where you need to. And eventually, in short order, right, you ask the Michigan fans, they were really bummed out right around 2020, right? That was a disaster of a season. But if you give it a little patience, let the strategy work, let the magic happen, eventually success will come. And Nebraska, under Matt Rule, is following a very similar path. And if they can stick to it, they'll end up in a very similar destination, winning big-time playoff games in January.